I'm quite appreciative of the chance to talk to you folks about the probation department. I think everybody here obviously has a basic understanding of what the probation department does. I asked our staff to be here because they have a few items that we've confiscated, and it will give you a little bit of an idea of what our daily work entails, because it's not easy to explain. I have a little bit of a cheat sheet here to talk to you about. I just want to start out by saying Webster's dictionary defines probation as the action of suspending the sentence of a convicted offender and giving them freedom during good behavior under the supervision of a probation officer. Okay, that makes sense, right? A probation officer is defined in Webster's dictionary as an officer appointed to investigate, report on, and supervise the conduct of convicted offenders on probation. And that's pretty self-explanatory as well. Way back, the founding father of probation was John Augustus. He was a bootmaker in Massachusetts. And the story goes that John Augustus attended police court in 1841 to bail out a common drunkard. Took him home with him and supervised him, so to speak, and got him on the right path. And from there, that philosophy generated through other states. And it looks like the first probation legislative law that was first passed was in 1901. The earliest record in our office, which is not the legislator's office, so I'm sure there's earlier records, but our earliest record of a probation report, an annual report to the legislative body, was in 1953. So I've got a little bit of background from then, and the interesting thing is that the problems and the people were very much the same 66 years ago as they are today. Our department has actually hasn't changed much. We started out with one probation commissioner, one probation director, and one officer. But since I've been around, 39 years, I came on board in 1980, our staff was 4 probation officers. Back in the day, we had 4 officers, 1 director, 2 support staff. We're now at 4 officers, 1 director, and 1 support staff. Kay is actually manning the fort right now. Well, everybody's here, and honestly, we can't preclude the fact that she's really important. Your front desk staff also are the first people to either bring them in or calm them down or keep them quiet while they're waiting for their officer to show up. Our department is overseen by the New York State Division of Probation and Correctional Alternatives. Our state director is Bob Macarone. He's responsible for establishing standards, providing training, technical assistance, monitoring outcomes related to our supervision and the way we treat our folks. The biggest change in the past 11 years is the way we record our info. When I started here, everything was handwritten, manually typed, a much slower process than it is now. For the past 11 years, we have a software program mandated by the state called Caseload Explorer, and it was great learning pains when that came along. We thought, oh good gosh, how are we ever going to sit in front of a computer and record everything? But believe it or not, is a much more efficient way of doing business than when we used to handwrite all of our notes and handwrite all of our reports. So I'm going to talk just briefly about one of the changes that we spent the last 18 months working on, and that's the only actual legislation that has changed the age of criminality, which I've talked with all you guys about before. That raised the age. We've spent a great deal of time about that. As of October 1st last year, 16-year-olds are no longer considered adults or considered juveniles, but it's a youth part, and it's a whole complicated theory that the state has developed. I can honestly say to you that in the past 8 months, we've not had a 16-year-old criminal arrest yet. So we still haven't put into practice any of the new ways of handling a 16-year-old. So on to the actual supervision part. I don't think that the public understands what it really takes to be a probation officer. You have to have a college degree, a 4-year degree, but you have to have a great deal of patience, understanding. You have to be firm, you have to be resilient, you have to think quickly, you have to be ready for the unexpected. I don't believe you can be judgmental. That's what I've always said, is that in order to do our work, we're dealing with human beings who are complicated, and so you have to meet them meet them, not maybe with your bias, but meet them where they're at the same time helping them to make changes and getting them to be safe for themselves and safe in the community. So depending on the circumstances, we could be out all night. Sometimes we are. Matt was out last week at 3:30 in the morning. Way back when I look back at those annual reports, that one of the common threads is people's behavior doesn't happen between 9 and 5 or 8:30 and 4:30. People's behavior happens all like 24/7, every day, every month, whatever. So we might be out. We are providing transportation on a daily basis to who knows what, whether it be babysitting service. We provide babysitting services at times if one of our clients needs to get somewhere, and we're going to watch the kids while they take care of business, or we meet them at the ER, or we get them groceries, we get them clothes. If they're ready for a job interview and they aren't really dressed correctly, then we're willing to take them to Walmart and get them something that would make them more presentable. I'm trying to think of all the different things that we've done. Obviously, we observe urine specimens. We spend a great deal of our time in the bathroom. We administer Alka-Sensors. We pick up pets that are left behind if they do go to jail or to treatment. They take them to the animal shelter. I mean, you name it, and we do it. I don't think there's one of those folks that are sitting there. All 4 of my probation officers will go the extra mile. They will do whatever it takes to get somebody to make some changes in their life. And you know, it's not. Rehabilitation isn't accomplished in a day, not in a week, not in a month. Sometimes it takes several months. Sometimes it takes a year or more. And sometimes we totally fail. They want to do whatever they can do to make that person reach some level of success. But in the end, it's that person's own desire to change that really results in success. I'm just really proud, though, to say that ever since I've worked at this department, we have that philosophy of going that extra mile and trying to help them make some changes in their behavior. So just to give you a typical day, well, how do we meet these folks that come into our system? First time we have a contact with an offender is usually at arraignment in county court if they're a felony offender. If they've gone to jail, Sarah Bush does our pretrial program, and she would meet them at jail if they're in jail on bail. She takes that information back to the judge that arraigned them, back to the district attorney's office to see if perhaps they could get released under probationary release, which we believe is a really important program, and that's like kind of the first time that there's an intervention in that person's life. That can happen until they're actually sentenced. Then the next time that we would have contact, or the first time we would have contact, is when they actually come in front of the judge and they plead guilty, and the court orders what's called a pre-sentence investigation. And that's like a biography, like a psychosocial. So we sit down, and could be a 6, 7, 8 page document that we prepare for the court. Gives them some background, their legal history, where they're at, their drug and alcohol use, their employment history, their educational history. We come up with a recommendation to the court. There are many times when we might tell the court that we don't believe that they're appropriate for community supervision, but the court already has that in mind for them as a sentence. So there's a lot of times that we get folks that come through our door that, number one, they don't want to be there, and we might not think they should be there, but that doesn't matter, because our job is to, again, meet them where they're at and see what we can do to get them over the hump. Right now we're working on 36 of those court-ordered investigations anytime. That's about normal in a month's time. Last year we did 160 pre-sentences or pre-pleas for the courts. So when they actually get sentenced to probation, Matt and Marcus basically take care of all of our DWI and drug-related offenders. Matt also does the CD monitoring if they get an ignition interlock in a justice court system. He has to monitor all that. He does a lot of that. That sounds like a simple thing, and that's one of the most complicated. I just noticed again today, there's one guy that had ordered to have an ignition interlock. I bet he's been at the office every day for the last 2 weeks because he needs help to try to get to the point where it's going to actually work. Now he was calling today to say, we don't have him on probation, but that's one of our jobs, is to help him with his ignition interlock. Now I see he wants some help to get his rebate or whatever. So whatever we have to do, we will do. That's in our nature, I think. Lisa does our juvenile offender, and again, we don't have a lot. Our numbers are small, 8 right now as a JD population. We also give her a lot of our mentally ill, chemically addicted folks because that's her expertise. That's where her background came from. Sarah has a general population of troubled folks, and every single one of those officers, any given day, will meet with either any of the other officers' clients. Like, none of them will ever say to me, well, that's not my job. Sometimes I say that now, because I don't feel like I'm as prepared as I used to be when I was in the trenches, so to speak. I still have a caseload. My caseload is the sex offender population, and I know it sounds silly, but they're easy. They're typically easy to supervise. They don't typically have drug and alcohol problems, and they're mostly employed, and so that's just a different, anyway, none of them will refuse to meet with an offender. I'm just going to kind of close by saying I had them come in. I wanted you to see how different life is now than it was when I started 39 years ago. If you want to stand and show off the fact that they wear bulletproof vests when they go in the field now. They have handcuffs, they have Narcan, they have pepper spray, they have flashlights, they have radios that are tied in directly with the Sheriff's Department, which has made a huge difference in our safety features. You know, when I started 39 years ago, we went into the field. I mean, I just went into the field and I wore nylons and skirts, and I got chased by a goat and bit by a goose, and the only self-defense mechanism thing, we used to carry dog biscuits with us. That was, and you use some common sense. If there was something that looked like you shouldn't get in the middle of it, you should try to get out of it. It's not so much that same way now, because our folks are a little bit more complicated than they used to be. Same problems, same human nature, same issues, whether it be family issues or financial issues, but no, stand up still, because I want you to show off. I'm gonna let you know what they did. Like 2 of them today. Lisa and Matt went out this morning on a routine home visit and came back with what?
Well, there were actually 3 of them, but I only brought 2.
Like 3 bottles of vodka. 2 are empty. Well, one had a little trickle left in it that they let the
A
man
DWI offender that's not supposed to be drinking, but
not supposed to be drinking.
I can't seem to get him to stop. We're working on it. But
And
the
then-
last time he went to the jail and spent a week in intensive care while under the sheriff's supervision. So we do our best to try to keep costs down on that side too.
Yeah. And then Marcus was
And this is the
not
coolest,
too long into the job. That
coolest thing
found
I've found in my short time here.
one of his home
This
visits.
actually belonged to one of Sarah's probationers. It was in my probationer's house. More than likely traded for drugs. So.
And last week
Snatch
they
this
came
up.
back with some drug paraphernalia, a bong or 2, and then when I talked about spending time in the bathrooms, we have some other paraphernalia because people go to any length to try to manipulate their urine. So we got a lot of little gadgets that they use and whatever.
This one's probably the most interesting.
Yep,
This is
it's like a Whizzinator. So you know if
actually
they're going to be tested,
store-bought in urine for
they try to bring somebody else's urine in, and so we've got mirrors in the bathroom on the top, on the bottom, and and then their eyes, and so
my head
I'm telling
shot in Utica.
that it's just a lot more complicated than it used to be, for sure. I never, and I think most of them until the last few years, we never had to worry about people dying on our watch. People on probation weren't prone to overdosing. People on probation, we didn't have to think that they were going to die, and that's kind of a scary thing now. So they don't leave any stone unturned. I said I think our philosophy can really be summed up by a quote that says, "Probation seeks to inspire self-respect, without which no one can succeed." Without basic self-respect, I think that's the root of a lot of our issues today. But unfortunately, our success depends greatly on the probationer's own desire to develop into lawful, drug-free, responsible behavior. So that's what we do every day. It's not something that you can really put on paper, but your personality is such that you have to like people and you have to expect the unexpected and and never give up, I guess is that's what we do every day they come back to work, so.
Mary
Yeah.
Jo, what's the current caseload for you guys?
Our caseload right now is at 220, and it pretty much stays static like that in the last few years. It goes up a few and down a few. Our adult caseload is 220. So, and then again, we're working on pre-sentences, and we're, I don't know, a lot of times the things we do are not things that you think that probation is responsible for, but we do it. We get that person to whatever situation, in whatever situation they are, we try to get them into a better situation, so. Yep. So thank you. Any questions though about, like, I
No,
really
I think they do a
that
great job.
even though the state doesn't give the probation department much money, the counties pretty much fund we are definitely an unfunded mandate. You know, we're a mandated department, but I think that I think that your money is well spent, I guess is what I'm going to say. I think we do a lot with what little we have. And thank you, because you've been supportive through my tenure as the director. You've been really supportive of making sure they are safe. So.
Mary Jo, plus beyond that, they go far beyond working with the sheriff's office, state police, village. They assist a lot when it comes to narcotics work. It's an invaluable, extra help there to have. So, we thank you a lot for that too.
And I should say too that we don't operate in a bubble. We spend a lot of time with all the other agencies in the county too. We all work together really well, more so than ever, I think. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.